Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Top Leaders. I'm Jen Anderson, and I'm on a mission to help you become the leader that everyone wants to work for. And as such, I'm very aware of the fact that outside of the workplace and who you are and what you're doing to develop yourself is very, very important. I know that you've got big things you're trying to do with your team members. I know you've got goals you're trying to accomplish. And here at today's Top Leaders, we're trying to help you with really cool supplemental stuff to help you so that you can succeed as a leader. Therefore, today I want to have a great conversation so that you guys can all learn a little bit more about networking and the power of networking and what it can do to help you as you're developing yourself as a leader. Therefore, I invited Todd Russell to come join me here on today's Top Leaders. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then we're going to jump into a great conversation. So Todd Russell was born and raised in Utah. He served a mission in Japan for the LDS Church. He's been married for 24 years, has 5 kids, 3 grandchildren. He loves to cook either barbecue, smoker, or Dutch ovens. Todd has worked in technology for over 25 years. His experience with business owners has catapulted him into his current focus, where he works with Paychex and consults with businesses around their payroll, benefits, compliance, and HR and retirement services. Todd has managed teams for over 15 years and has always had a passion for helping people see and realize their full potential. Todd, thank you for coming on today's Top Leaders.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. Great to be with you.
For sure. Well, okay, you guys. So full disclosure, Todd and I have known each other like 100 years. Okay. We're basically like brother and sister. All right. So here's the deal. When I was thinking about talking about networking, I thought for a second, who would be a great person to be a guest? And immediately Todd Russell comes to mind. Okay. And so again, Todd's not somebody who's been out there like writing books and doing trainings and stuff about all this, but he lives and breathes really, really good networking. Really, really good. So I want you guys to listen up and pay attention to what we're talking about because Todd's so good at this stuff. And so, Todd, before we get into networking, though, I got to throw some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for this?
You bet. I'm ready.
All right.
Let's go.
Such a good sport. He's like, whatever, Jen, let's do it. Okay.
Bring it on.
Okay. First of all, your favorite sport?
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse. Oh, lacrosse stick. Okay.
I've coached lacrosse for 15 years, so love it. Absolutely love it.
So good. So good. I'm always like, why are they running around with it? Like, anyhow, I know I'm horrible about sports. That's why good people like you coach. All right. What is your favorite book today? Because I know you read a lot, but what's your favorite book right now?
That is a great question. The one I actually just had a meeting yesterday, I was talking to somebody about, and the E-Myth Revisited is the book that I recommended. It's one that I've read recently. I should say reread for like the 3rd time. Yeah. So that's probably right up there. That's got to be one of the top ones.
So good. So many pearls of wisdom in that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could travel to one place right now, where would you want to go?
Sendai, Japan.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. And then I know you like do the Dutch oven thing, but I'm going to force you to pick one meal. That's like your favorite Dutch oven meal. What is it?
So meal or thing to prepare, because there's a difference, right? A meal could consist of several different entrees, whatever, right? But my favorite thing to cook in it is very simple, actually. It's called Mountain Dew Apple Cobbler, and it is phenomenal. It's a dessert, but it is absolutely the best. It's my favorite to cook.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Does it cook off the caffeine?
Sure. Cooks all of that off. When I don't know if you know this, but Dutch ovens are magic. So butter, everything, the fat melts away.
Everything
melts away. It's incredible.
Awesome. That's good. No carbs the whole day.
Right.
That's awesome. So good. Okay. Your favorite movie?
Oh, The Book of Eli.
Oh, I haven't thought about that in a minute. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Good.
I just like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Great story.
Yes, that's good. Okay. And then finally, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Well, Immediately my mind went to which area of life are you talking
Right.
about? Um, Pet peeve would just be not following through. So people that say one thing and then don't follow through on it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, totally. And that applies in both personal and professional circles.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that for you, especially you're so good at following through on things. So I could see how
Well, I
you
appreciate that. I learn from people like you, right?
right. Yes. Okay. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. So let's talk about networking. So for the benefit of the viewers, define networking. What is professional networking?
Yeah, I just did this with my son, who's a programmer, and he's not somebody who gets out and networks with anybody. He's in front of a computer all day, right? So, as far as what that would look like, networking, and what that means is actually expanding your base, right? So, a lot of people think it's people out there rubbing shoulders and hobnobbing and whatever, like getting to know people because they're trying to sell something. And that's not the case. Every business owner I talk to, they have some kind of pain. And a lot of times it's not something that I could address or help them with. But if I have somebody that I could, introduce them to, and it's
Yeah.
somebody I know and I trust and I like, I can send that person to them and help them alleviate that problem. To me, that's the value of networking, is being able to have the resources and build those resources up individually, whether it's in a personal life scenario or whether that's in a business corporate scenario. So there's a lot of different avenues there. And I think the long and short answer of that is really just being able to have the resources available to you when you need them.
Nice. I love
Does
that.
that work?
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's so great because you're so right. Whenever I talk to people about networking, they're like, it's like a dirty word.
Yeah.
I want to
Well,
do
and it was
networking.
funny. My son had never, I guess, put two and two together and realized that what that really meant when I told him I was at an event and there were 120 people there, and he looked at me like, "Why would you go there? What were you doing? Why would you want to get to know, a banker, or why would you want to know a real estate guy, or what does it matter?" And I have a story maybe we'll get into later that I can talk to about that, but it was good to speak to my son and kind of walk through. And then he put his business hat on and was like, that makes a lot of sense. That
Right.
makes sense. So
Yeah, for sure. Another thing about networking too, that I think that helps to define it is that there's not a known outcome that comes from connecting with people. You've no idea what
well
it could possibly lead to. No idea.
the thing I would say to that too is the people that think they know the outcome or they're going for that outcome usually aren't going to get it.
Yeah.
They're, people can sniff that out and they can feel it.
Yeah.
So if
Right.
somebody's coming to you for a specific, they're trying to sell or they're trying to use you to get somewhere or whatever,
Yeah.
Usually people can sniff that out. So
yeah, you're so right. Absolutely. I'm sorry. I'm just giggling because I'm thinking this time years ago, I was talking to this person who was looking for a job and he's like, okay, everybody's telling me I got to go to like networking, I got to network, and so homeboy is like out of a job, super, super like stressed out, overwhelmed, he's watching his bank account drop by the day, just so overwhelmed. And I think, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure he was married with some kids. Like he's got some like big, things, right? House
yeah,
payment, carpet, like whatever the things are. And he's just like, okay, tell me what to do when I go to like these networking events. And I'm like, don't go. He's like, what? Like totally, that's not what he was. I said, don't go. He's like, why? And I said, because you have desperate written across your forehead right now.
exactly.
And to that whole thing, like you're talking about people sniffing it out, I'm like, man, you're going to roll into this meeting and people are just going to be like, who is this person? You just ooze that feeling of anxiety and discomfort. Anyhow, he did eventually get a job. And then we were talking later and he's like, oh my gosh, he said, I know now the value of networking. And so even though you would think, oh, he's got the full-time job, no need to network, he realized how important it was to consistently do something. It doesn't mean like he was going to something every week, but even industry conferences or something related to the line of work they do, and are set like huge difference, right? And was able to start really recognizing, I got to develop a network of people for connections when I need it.
Well, and that's the thing. And I think throughout this discussion, we'll probably explain or talk more into what networking really is. But there's 100 different stories. And the one I love happened to me probably, it's been about 12 years ago. And I was at a networking event. It was a lunch, and you were assigned to sit at a table. And there were 6 or 7 other people at the table. And so when you go in, you get your lunch and you sit down and you meet everybody at the table. Well, there was one seat left open. We were having a great conversation. And I remember at the table, there was a lady, and I can't remember, I think it was Mary Kay that she was selling, or Avon, one of the two, right? Some makeup company that she had on. And then at the table, there were this great mix of other people. There was a business guy in a suit. And then there was somebody sitting next to him who was a business owner of a very, a multi-million-dollar company. And then next to him was a sales guy he was sold insurance. And anyway, it was a great mix of people. Mm-hmm. And the last guy came walking over to the table. And as he approached, he walked around to his seat, but he looked at the table, and physically and audibly, he goes, nope, maybe, oh, definitely, maybe, no. And everybody stops talking, and we're looking at this guy like, what are you doing? And he sits down. Well, he had pointed to the lady with Mary Kay on her shirt and said no to her. And he sat down, and all of us, honestly, we're just like, what are you doing? Like, that's not cool. Well, it came to the point where we all had to talk about who we were, what we did, and one connection that we were looking for. And when it came to him, his one connection that he mentioned that he wanted to look for was a name of a company, right, in Provo. And as soon as he said it, the lady almost spit her water out and started laughing. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, did I say something funny? And she goes, actually, you did. Did you not see my name? That's my husband's company. He owns that company. And you will never do business with us, ever. And it just kind of set the thing right there. Like, he was somebody networking. He had a purpose, and that's all he cared about. Yeah. And he had a predefined, these are the people that can help me get there. And the point of all this is, you never know who can help you. You never know who your neighbor knows, or who, somebody you work with on a day-to-day basis. You don't really know their network and who they really know and who they might have access to. So from that standpoint, the networking side of it is just being open to understand that you never know who everybody knows, right? Anyway.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, that was...
Nope.
I couldn't believe it was happening when I was there watching it. But
wow, it's interesting. It's fascinating that you would actually say it out loud. In your mind, you might be like, probably no connect, but
right.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, so sorry to get off on that tangent.
Yeah, it's not a tangent because it's a great case study, an example of something not to do. So for everybody watching this, don't ever, ever, never, ever do that when you go somewhere.
Don't judge people that, and that's the thing. Don't prejudge that somebody can't or can help you. Mm-hmm. Just be open, right? And if they can help.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
But that's another thing we can talk about later is, can they help?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So to me, there's a difference between networking with what you were just talking about. That's with people outside of your company. They're, very different. But then there's inside of your company. There's your coworkers, people from other divisions. Maybe you work at a large enough company where there are sister companies underneath a holding company or something like that. And that can look very different than outside of your company. Talk to us a little bit about your thoughts around the networking inside the company. Maybe you've got an example on that too.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a couple, and that's a great point. So a couple of companies, Fusion, back in the day, right?
Yeah.
When I was there, I made it a point to get to know people in every area. So if it was shipping, if it was, I was in the marketing side of things, um, and then sales, every part of that company, I tried to have a connection with somebody and a good connection, right? And so going through that, if I needed something, if a client of mine needed something that I was working with, I always had people that I could go to kind of get around some red tape, maybe internally of how you're supposed to communicate or whatever else is going on. But that really helped and it really made a difference. For example, Fusion, right? Um, the other one I would say is a great thing that we do here at Paychex is we have I don't know if I'm going to say what it's called, but you can sign up as an employee and say you want to meet other employees. I guess there's no big deal about talking about it. It's called mystery coffee, and you get set up based on your profile. They set you up with other people in the company, and then you get an email, and it says simply, "Here's so and so, and here's where they work, here's what they do, and here's their about," and it shows you what they love to do, what their hobbies are, if they like to read, whatever. They put all of that in there. So then when you schedule that meeting, it comes ready to go. You have an hour meeting and you get to know people. And I've met some of the most fascinating people in the company. And our company's large. We've got about 15,000 employees or so. And so it's large, and we have a lot of company, I don't know if you'd call them columns, just like any other company, right? But structures where there's different sets of roles and focuses for people. And this just kind of breaks all that down as far as you get to know people across the company in a flat level. And it's phenomenal because at the end of the day, people make the difference. And
Right.
it's incredible to have great relationships within a company outside of your little team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, if you look at that from corporate America standpoint, if a company isn't doing something like that, they really need to look at that because
Yeah.
it really does break down barriers between,
Mm-hmm.
groups and teams, and it's awesome. So it gets rid of the silos, it gets rid of all of that. They'll still be there, but you'll have those interactions between. You'll know who to talk to, and so anyway, I've just seen that time and time again.
Yeah.
For me, it's helped me out where I've had an issue or internally or externally that I've been able to go to somebody in our company. I know this guy. I had a meeting with him 6 months ago, and I can reach out to him.
Yeah.
So
And it's so smart because if you have a problem, challenge, something that's going on, usually you can solve that better with connecting with somebody, right? I mean, it's just like people in their own life, it's like, well, duh, like you need something done to your roof or whatever, right? What are you going to do?
yeah,
You're going to say, who do I know that's a roofer, or who do I know that may know a good roofer, right? And so we solve problems usually through people, right? And then you get the thing done.
yeah,
And so I love those examples because I could see how somebody like you talked about being in marketing and talking to somebody in shipping. I could see the person in shipping initially being like, why what's Todd doing? And then later having that connection with each other. And
yeah,
so then, I mean, I'm also very, like, for me personally, and having seen a lot of people, so I've been coaching people and helping them build their careers for 25 years. I don't know how I got that old, but here I am, hit the 25-year mark. But the people who have had those connections, they're like,
yeah.
man, I never knew that it would be helpful to know them. And that's what I was saying a couple minutes ago, that sometimes you don't know why. You
Right.
just show up with that intentionality of, you're a human being, I'm a human being. We have some kind of connection, where for you, the connection was through the company that you work in, right?
Yeah.
Let's start there. And who knows what can go from there.
Yeah, well, and another company, like I had Fritter Friday, right? I don't know if I with you about that, but I
Yeah.
would buy 3 or 4 dozen fritters, and that was it. Friday mornings, it was just fritters, and people would come over and sit and talk,
Yeah.
and they were from all over, and it was just interesting to talk to people and get to know them and get to know what they did in their business world, right? And
Right. Yeah.
learn more about them. So, but the other point that as I was saying all that, that those were from larger companies, 1,000 employees or more, that all of that happened. But there's been smaller companies as well that I worked at, and the biggest thing inside that company was lack of communication.
Hmm.
And I think that's very rampant and very, um, if you look at companies out there today, and if they're 50 employees or 200 employees, 500 employees, I think they all have the same issue with, sometimes you've got the owner who thinks this is what we do as a company, management, middle management thinking this is what we do as a company, and then the people out in shipping, warehouse, whatever, sales, and they all have their own version of what's going on. And you can do a really great job about communicating that all the way down. But it's really when you bring everybody together and you start talking to everybody and getting to know everybody that you really get that and understand what that is, and you're able to move that down through each one of the silos, because every
Hmm.
company has them,
They all
that
do.
help bring them closer
Yeah.
together. And
Right. Yeah, I
yeah,
love that's a whole nother part of it too, right? Like you think of a the executive level and information, they think they've cascaded it down and it's not effective, right? Other people misunderstand. And so so again, when I think about networking, like there's been a lot of examples that I've seen inside of companies where when there is a miscommunication, how it's like the fire of that can be tamped down really quickly if there's
yeah,
some people who know each other from the opposing
exactly.
sides, right? Whereas if they don't know each other, then that's when you have all of these judgmental thoughts and you're not giving people the benefit of the doubt, you're jumping to conclusions about things. Whereas if they have some kind of connection, right, when there is a problem, it happens like, oh, well, I know Todd over there, hold on a second, let me get on the horn with him, or let
Yeah,
me walk over there,
exactly.
and be like, hey, this thing happened, do you know anything about it? And then all of a sudden other data points, and it's like, okay, we're good. Just
Yeah,
fizzles it out, right? Versus like,
exactly.
how dare they? Because people tend to take offense really quickly.
Yeah, no, I agree. The bottom line is we all have our lives that we're going to live, right? And it's short. I mean, we were just talking about age, right? It creeps up on
Yep.
you really quick.
Yep.
And so for me, it's all about those engagements that you have and the people that you meet and those stories that you can tell, right?
Yeah.
And so getting to know people, on the networking side of it, whether you call it networking or whatever you're going to, um, we all have a sphere of influence that we can work with. Those are people around us that help us and influence who we are on a daily basis. And we can expand that or we can keep it small. And that's
Hmm.
our choice. And as far as networking goes and getting out there and knowing people, it's really just being you, getting out and just talking to people and realizing that people are people. And yeah, some people don't want anything to do with having those extra conversations. There was a guy at one of the companies I worked with that we went to with a question, and his answer was, "That is not in my purview." All right, well, thank you very much. And that was all he would say. He's like, I clearly not somebody who wanted to talk,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
unless it was pertaining to what he was doing, right?
Hmm.
Don't talk to him. So that was a little bit different. But on the flip side of that, I've talked to a lot of people about networking. There's a group that I'm in, here in Utah, and there's a lot of people in there that I've met over the years. I've been doing it for 13 years now, and there are some people that have come to me and said, I just don't know that I have anybody to share, or I don't know that I want to share my clients with other people. And so this is on the external side, outside of company. But the bottom line is, if somebody comes to me and they're looking for a dentist, right? And they want to get to know a dentist. And maybe I don't know a dentist off the top of my mind or top of my head, and I can't think of it. But I know somebody who belongs to a group that meets with the Dental Association of Utah or something like that. I'm going to refer him. I'm going to introduce him. Say, hey, you should get to know John. He goes to this event. He knows thousands of dentists. You should get to know him. And that's the way my brain works. It's that simple. Whether it's internal or external, it's that same kind of thing. If I'm at a company and someone comes to me and says, I need to do this, I start thinking, well, that's not me, but I know who does that, and I can point you in the right direction, right?
Right.
And so anyway, yeah, I'm going down.
I know. Well, and what's great about that rabbit hole example that you're just giving is because, again, you just never know what a connection can do in the future. You really just don't know, right? Like I remember 7,000 years ago when I was invited to join LinkedIn, and there was a neighbor of mine he was one of those guys at Goldman Sachs that his customers have like billions, like with a B, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, Jen, he's like, you got to get on this LinkedIn thing. And I looked at it, and like within 13.2 seconds, I'm like, holy cow, this is brilliant. Right. This was back in, again, it was like before Facebook, right? So like MySpace existed, and so, and I'm like, no, this is really smart. This makes a lot of sense. And I love it because it's a tool that when I connect with people, I meet them at networking events or whatever it is, or if I'm speaking, I'll have people say, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn, etc. And it's wonderful because I don't have to keep track of people's email addresses.
Right.
They can go and bounce around to wherever it is. And then I can very easily send them a message. Hey, I need to introduce you to so-and-so, or, hey, I heard about this. You might be interested, or whatever. And it's so fast and easy. But I feel like LinkedIn has replaced in a lot of people's minds the power of in-person and person-to-person networking. They're like, I'm networking. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm like, that's like akin to having a stack of business cards on your desk. So what? Right. What are you doing with it? Like, how are you actually connecting with people? And so share a little bit of your perspective about that whole aspect that people think I'm networking because I'm on social media.
Yeah. And LinkedIn is great, right? So I love LinkedIn. I've been involved with LinkedIn for a long time, and I've coached people on LinkedIn and trained companies on LinkedIn. Executives and everything on how to use it, how to set it up, and that kind of stuff, right? LinkedIn for me, it's a great tool, and you can use it in so many different ways. If you're recruiters, it's they've got a great resource for that. Marketing, they've got some great resources for that, right? We've got friends in both of those areas that use it for that. Mm-hmm. But to me, if you're on LinkedIn and your sole focus is to build it up, I've got a couple of friends that have 20,000 connections. And the thing is, I've got one of them that I know doesn't interact a lot with his network, right? So it doesn't matter if there were 100,000, if there's not that connection and you're not out there being involved. So I guess the bottom line with that is LinkedIn is a great tool in many different areas, and you can use it 100 different ways, 1,000 different ways, probably. But from my perspective, to really build it to where it's a networking tool or a relationship tool, right? You want to be engaging with people. So when I connect with somebody, I try to reach out and say, hey, I'd love to have a 15-minute phone call just so I can put a face with who you are and understand that we're both real people. And that's it. And there's no selling, there's no pitching, there's no anything. I don't even care if that ever happens. I just want to know who you are and know that when I look at your name on LinkedIn, I know we've had a connection. I know who you are. We've spoken. So I think that's more important. And I think it's this morning I had a great conversation with somebody who I connected with. We went through that same thing. Let's have a meeting. We blocked out an hour and had an hour-long meeting. Well, we've scheduled 2 follow-up meetings, from our meeting today, just to follow up on things that we want to talk about. And one meeting's for one topic, the other meeting's for another topic. And it just was a phenomenal meeting, right? You never know where things are going to go.
Right.
So anyway, I think LinkedIn is a great tool. Alignable is another one that's out there. That's another great tool that's coming up. But LinkedIn, it can be used for so many different ways to connect with people.
Yeah.
And so
I know.
I don't know where my mind's going so many different areas on LinkedIn where you could go and but a lot of different tools that you can use to.
Right, for sure. So if we bring it down to some basics, some foundational things about networking, let's leave our listeners with a few things, right? Like, first of all, what's the first thing that you want to do for networking? And then maybe a couple subsequent things.
Yeah, and from the corporate side of things, right? So I would look at it, number one, from the corporate side. If I'm an executive or if I'm working in a larger company, I want to make sure that there's some way for our employees to engage with each other. It doesn't have to be every Friday. It doesn't have to be something like that. But I would make it on a regular basis. I would make it something that gets them to meet one-on-one, get with 15 minutes with somebody. I think that's a great tool if you look at it from that standpoint, from a corporation or business standpoint. Outside of that, if it's just somebody networking and you're looking at, I need to go network, the best thing that I can say, start with, number one, leave your resumes and your business cards at home and just be you. If you're walking into a place and you've got a stack of cards that you're walking in with, right, and you're like, hey, here you go. I don't want your card. I want to get to know you. And if we have a conversation and it goes from there, then maybe there's a time I'm going to ask for your card. But I wouldn't be the one out there just giving everybody your card because you got a stack you got to get rid of.
Right.
So that's maybe the first thing, right? Go out there, be real, and expect people to be real with you.
I love that. So good. It's awesome. And I would also add to that, I think it's really important that you know, like, who you are, like, embrace your story, know who you are. And of course, I'm big on, you got to know your personal brand, right? Like, if you don't know your brand, then don't go networking, is what I tell people. Because you're going to roll into a meeting and what do we all say to each other? What's the classic first question?
What do you do?
Ding, ding, ding.
Who are you?
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. What do you do? And I'm like, right? Like, how do you stand out? How do you make sure you're memorable? And I'm not talking some robotic me in 30 seconds, kind of thing. But a lot of people, I think that's part of the reason why they get all like, they feel like they want to throw up before they roll into a meeting because they're like, I don't even know what I'm going to say. And I know people are going to ask me, what do you do? Right. Yeah. And so a little bit is like, okay, before you even do whatever, even if it's internally or whatever, like, know who you are, know, those unique things about yourself. But I just see a lot of people who are so flat out busy. There are a lot of, think of people with family commitments. If you've got anything in the community, work, etc., they're not stopping and saying, okay, who am I? Right. And so then that brings up, then if you're not clear on that, no wonder you're going to be nervous when you go into these meetings, right? Or like the guy that, I said, you got desperate written across your forehead. Like, it's not going to come across well.
No. And that's the other thing, right? It shouldn't make you nervous. If you're nervous about it, I understand nervous about talking or speaking in front of other people, a group or something like that. But really to just go up and talk to somebody and say, hi, my name's Todd. How are you? And just start talking, right? Yeah. So where'd you get that tie? Where'd you, whatever. You like the shrimp? How is that? Should I get some? Whatever, right?
Yes.
But start talking about something and don't make it all about what do you do? Who do you? Because the common response on that is you're just projecting, right? Like, I'm here for just business and all I care about is business,
right?
Which is great, but it's about how you go about it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I think if you're relaxed and you go in there and you're genuinely real person and you're approaching it that way, you're going to have a lot better response. People are going to be more apt to come up and speak with you and have those conversations.
Right, for sure. I also think from the leadership perspective, how important it is to equip your employees to do the networking, right? Like you gave the example at Paychex,
Yeah,
how you're doing the mystery coffee, which is awesome. It sounds really fun.
it's phenomenal.
You know, and so, but there's also, hey, you're going to this conference, right? We're sending you, you know, think of like some tech person who's going to a tech conference.
Yeah,
You're going to talk to people. And so, you know, how can we support you so that you feel comfortable, you know, different, you know, things like that. Even if they're not flying somewhere, it could be something local, right? But I've definitely have seen some leaders who've done a really good job to send their employees in pairs. So they've got that buddy, can kind of take that edge off a little bit, right? But then the trick
yeah,
is not to stay magnetized to your buddy the whole time, right? You
right.
know, and it's okay to have that person, but there's comfort in, I know this person, I don't have to talk to anybody, right? And so
Yeah,
there's just setting those proper expectations as a leader of what you expect, you know, for your people when you're paying them and you're paying for them to go to these networking events.
yeah, definitely. And that's, I've always, I've traveled a lot and done a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
And so with that, it's always interesting because, those opportunities for networking events or the shows that you go to and you can engage, um, if you're not intentional about what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right, then it doesn't really matter what you're doing because
Right.
you don't have a plan, you're not
Mm-hmm.
organized in what you're doing, right?
Yep.
So if you're just taking chances and you're there to happenstance, whatever, there's nothing wrong with having like going to an event and saying, I'm going to meet 3 people that are going to impact my business or impact, you know, our company in some way.
Yeah.
And taking that approach and going in and talking to people, and say you get to meet somebody and you have a great conversation with them. There's maybe not anything that you can do for them, maybe not anything they can do for you. But then there's nothing wrong with asking them, hey, I'm looking for this person. Do you know anybody here that does this at this event or whatever? And, you know, hopefully they can point you in the right way. A lot of
Right.
times, whenever I've tried that, it's worked.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
I know it totally works because you're also narrowing that person's thinking to specifically answer the question, right? So, and plus I find connecting with the organizers of an event, and I'm not talking about like the key person, but it could be like any of those people too. Like
yeah,
they may even be great to say, I'm looking to connect with somebody at this, you know, company or whatever, who, you know, who can you put me in touch with? And they want to be helpful. They
right,
get it. That's why they're helping to organize the thing, right? They're like, oh yeah, follow me. I'll go introduce you. Next thing you know, you're getting, but that's not going to happen if you don't know in advance when you're going and you're showing up. So
yeah.
yeah, it makes a big, big difference. So Todd, you and I really could keep talking forever about networking. Okay. You and I got more
Well,
stories than we got time. So,
yeah.
but is there kind of like one like real nugget of advice that like Uncle Todd's got to tell people? Here's a thing about networking.
Um, just do it, right? Um,
Yes.
I don't, as far as one nugget, I'm not sure. I think really, as I'm thinking about networking and all of that, it's really about being genuine. It's watching your expectations, meaning, don't judge people on whether they can or can't help you, right?
Right.
As far as networking goes, be open to everybody being able to help you. And number 3 is just being consistent in who you are and follow up and build that relationship. A lot of times what you're looking for is not going to come from that first interaction or second or third, but it's building that relationship so that, you know, down the road you have that and you can rely on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
So good.
that's what
Such
I would
good.
say.
I know I'm like asking you to sum up all of your decades of amazing connections with people, but that's a great way to just kind of wrap it up. And in the end, too, like one key thing that I want to leave our listeners with about networking is it's something that even if you think I suck at talking to people, I'm an introvert, I'm just interacting with my computer all day. Actually, some of the best networkers, the best relationship builders out there are the introverts. And so don't take yourself out of the game. Don't do it. Don't do it. And as you just said, just do it. Like it's like serious. Just do it, right? You may need some help. You might need some polishing, right? And that's some of the coaching stuff that I do too, but it's, hey, you can do this. You can make this happen. And so, but if you approach it, I'm never going to be able to do this, and you put up all these walls, you're right. You won't ever be able to do it. You won't.
Well, you just hit on what I didn't share this story earlier, but it was one that was in my mind to speak about today. Was that I was at the Red Hat Summit, which, if you know, that Red Hat is an operating system, right? And so we were there showcasing our technology, and we had sent it out earlier so they could do some white papers for us and different things like that. Well, I went out to the event, and most of the conversations were very technical, very high level, and it was all about technology. And I was at our booth, and a gentleman comes over, and we start talking about the technology. The next thing I know, it had been 2 hours. He and I spoke for 2 hours at our booth. And I leave, and I'm thinking, man, that guy was awesome. That was a great conversation. We talked about so many different things. And I get back to my office, and he beat me to the punch. I had a package waiting on my desk the next day. And, well, this was over the weekend. It was a couple days later. But it was from him, and it was just that engagement. And we've carried that relationship, and that's been, I don't know, 11 years now. Wow. So it's just amazing from that little conversation. Mm-hmm. And I've had that same opportunity on flights where I didn't think anything was happening, and, just sit down for a flight, put the headphones on, and conversation starts. And anyway.
I know.
Yeah, we could talk about this all day. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. No, it's okay. I love it. I love it. And for all of you who are watching this, you can see why I asked Todd.
It's really just about taking that first step, the initiative, right? Being yourself and having faith in other people that they're going to do the same.
Right. Exactly. It's so good. So good indeed. Todd Russell, thank you for coming on today's Top Leaders with me today.
Jen, anytime. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.